Hello, and welcome to the webinar 2024 AI Business Predictions, Reinventing Telecom with Generative AI. I'm Sue Marek. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm going to be joined by several of PwC's leaders in AI, and we're going to be discussing how AI will fundamentally change how telecom companies do business this year, and why it's important for organizations to act now to ensure that they don't get left behind. So the way this webinar is going to work is I'm going to be asking our panelists some questions. They'll be providing their expertise. And as you're listening, if you have questions you would like to ask our panelists, just please submit them and we will try to answer those questions later in the session. So before we get started, I'm going to let today's presenters introduce themselves. Bret, would you like to go ahead?
Of course. I'm Bret Greenstein. I'm a partner in PwC focused on generative AI, and I work on alliances and offerings to strategy, go-to-market, and help on our internal transformation as well.
Matt?
Hi, Matt Labovich, partner PwC, and I am the leader of PwC's data analytics and AI business.
Great. Mitra?
Hello, everyone. I'm Mitra Best. I'm also a partner at PwC, and currently I have the role of the tech impact leader, which is at the intersection of advanced technology and social impact. I used to be the chief innovation officer at the firm and had 2 successful startup exits before that. So I come at this from a lot of different angles. Happy to be here.
Great. Thank you. So let's get started. So what foundational moves can telecom companies use or make today to prepare for more AI usage? Mitra, do you want to start?
Sure. We've predicted that most organizations will fall behind if they don't implement an AI strategy within a year or less than that. And that includes telcos as well, particularly because telcos are actually the backbone of our digital economy. And they need to be accelerating their AI strategy in order to fulfill the needs of this fast-moving dynamic space, which is their ecosystem. And having an AI strategy doesn't mean that you have a few implementations here and there and you get distracted by shiny toys. It's really important to have a strategy that's coupled with your corporate strategy, with your corporate mission, that actually addresses your threats and opportunities in your organization in a meaningful way. So telecoms are faced with a lot of challenges: complex network, unfathomable amounts of data, fierce competition, soaring costs, scarce talent. All of these are there, and investing in AI could be a daunting proposition. However, having an AI strategy will actually address all of those in a meaningful way, because now you have access to technology that can use all that unused data that you get from your digital exhaust. You can put that into predictive models to manage your costs, create efficiencies in your network, create distributed frameworks, have scalable storage, and also address your customer loyalty in a meaningful way, where you now can have hyper-personalized customer care in a way that's indistinguishable from magic. For any of those sci-fi fans, there's a saying that any advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and I feel that GenAI is almost getting there. And all of this needs to be implemented by talent, and that scarcity of talent is something that I hope we talk about later on the panel, something that needs to be addressed. But having an AI strategy, not getting distracted by what's shiny and exciting, but really focused on coupling that with your corporate mission is the way to be ready.
Matt, did you want to add to that?
I think a few things just to add. One is there's obviously a lot around responsible AI organizations have to think about. This is going to be a technology that's going to change the way all telecoms perform activities and tasks across and transform all of their processes. So in essence, it's going to introduce a whole nother level of insight, but also things like review and evaluation and concepts like that. So from a responsible AI perspective, telecoms already have to answer to regulatory agencies and businesses and connect with them. And in the same way, they're going to have to think about that from an AI perspective as well. I will also say that one of the things we see related to AI is because of the vastness of it, the output and the insight is also greater, which means more people, more points of which people need to evaluate and then act on the output. They have to do something with it. AI can't do everything. There's still human interaction. We're not giving agency to a bunch of machines. So how do you react to the findings? How do you react to the output? How do you address the things it does to make sure you get the value for your business? Those are the things all organizations need to consider.
And Sue, if I may just add on to what Matt said about the having the AI governance and having responsible AI as the cornerstone of your strategy and framework. As Matt mentioned, we're going to be producing a lot of data, and we're going to be using a lot of data to create more data. I mean, it's going to be a data frenzy. And to not have a model where you can create trust, and I hope we talk about that later in the panel, is going to be critical to creating that stickiness with your customers and to have a successful relationship with your ecosystem apart and beyond your responsibilities to the regulators.
Now, Mitra kind of touched on this early, but are telecom firms increasing their budgets to prepare for the use of AI? Matt, do you want to address that?
I think what we're seeing across the board is all organizations are evaluating any significant spend on the IT front and how AI is going to either interact with it, increase or reduce it, right? So in general terms, even at clients that have well-established, technology strategies, they are reassessing everything. That's what we're seeing. So in general terms, we're seeing budgets, 40% of budgets expected to be related to AI activity. Some organizations are defining where their money's going and assessing it and then moving it to AI versus other priorities because AI is such an impact, especially generative AI. And we're seeing a lot of organizations increase their budgets related to it from other parts of the organization to AI, to IT or IT related or business related activity for AI. So it's very consistent that the spend related to AI is significantly higher. And I think it's important to remember that we've lived through GenAI for the last year, but that last year for most organizations, the budget was already set before the AI really hit, before we had an understanding of where things were going. And this is a little bit of catch up. Organizations, shifted their spend last year to address it. And this year they had time to plan for it, right? So we're seeing a lot more spend in the area.
Bret, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, this is one of those things that, unlike a lot of other technology or other disruptions, is a CEO level discussion. It's a board level discussion, because I think most companies recognize that it's an existential threat and opportunity for them. We're seeing this in telco in particular, where people are looking at what is the ability to grow their business in a nonlinear way, so that they're growing, revenue and customer base without hiring people at the same pace. So sometimes it's about just growing and scaling a business faster. But almost every use case we touch on, and I know we'll cover these a little bit later in the discussion, has a substantial benefit in productivity, speed, and cost. And boards and CEOs and C-suite members, especially CFOs, are looking at this in light of how can they scale their business faster? How can they drive next level speed? How can they disrupt competitors? How can they personalize, to Mitra's point earlier, in a way that traditionally you couldn't do with just more people and traditional investments? And I think to Matt's point, it's the shift of, I'll call it, older ways of doing some of these automations and some of these transformations to an AI native approach where AI and people working together can drive a very different outcome, a very different scale. And so that's causing this shift that is really reflective of the output and the benefits. It's not just that people want to spend money on AI. It's that they're seeing returns in the same year and they're able to prove it. And by proving it, they're building confidence so that allows them to shift more budget. It's becoming a virtuous cycle of AI transformation driving benefits, which drives more investment, which then drives more benefits.
Now, you touched on, Bret, that some of the let's talk about some of the early implementations of AI. You said maybe you can talk about some examples.
Yeah, within telco, and this is true in other sectors as well, the earliest use cases are ones with the largest ROI benefit, because the upfront effort to train, build, and get set up is, it's certainly harder when you're first getting started. So people are focusing on the largest ROIs. Everything around customer service, whether it's sales or service, but augmenting agents so that agents have the best knowledge available possible, so that customers can self-serve more and more, so you can present more information to help people as customers to use your services. That's one area. In the back office, everything around invoices and back office processing of documents, these are often very, very expensive, labor-intensive, sometimes outsourced processes, where generative AI can play a huge effect and drive a lot of savings and speed. So by offsetting those, you're freeing up money you can then spend to improve the front office, like sales and service. Another area that's been really hot in telco is everything around software and product development. So the ability to innovate and bring products to market faster, generative AI has a very, very big impact on the entire life cycle, from ideation to design to building to supporting and documenting products and software. And so obviously within telco, that makes the ability to get new products and services out to customers a lot faster. And so all three of those are kind of the hot entry points. And then from there, you'll tend to find every company has 1,000 use cases, but they start with a couple of foundational moves that drive higher ROI and build a foundation. And then off of that, you can build the other use cases.
Matt, did you have some examples you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think beyond what Bret highlighted, which are definitely the ones that people go after first, one of the other things that we've seen is this is the first time organizations are going to be able to take advantage of some of their unstructured data in a way that's really going to enhance the organizational performance, right? So we talk about regular structured data in databases and stuff like that, the unstructured off of IoT devices and things, but everyone kind of forgets that a lot of organizational knowledge is sitting in other types of documents, other types of information or knowledge information that folks can leverage. So things like PowerPoints and Excel documents and things sitting on people's computers that are really the knowledge of how the business works. We can have memos or process documentation, flowcharts, maintenance documents, things like that at any part. And what we're seeing is organizations figure out, hey, I'm going to have to take my maintenance documents and my policies and my procedures. I can put it in here, and I can make my average analyst or my average engineer as good as my best. I can put the information at their fingertips. And this is really the first time organizations can really leverage that in a universal way, especially organizations where, in general terms, maybe the workforce trends to be a little bit older, especially folks that are in the field doing maintenance. And you really have to take that knowledge and make it accessible to everyone. It's really powerful for all organizations. Telco is obviously very heavily invested in the same way.
And Bret, I'm going to direct this to you. Are telecom companies embracing AI more readily than they did with the cloud? We know they took a while to embrace the cloud. And why do you think that is?
So the transition to cloud for telco and for a couple of other industries lagged, but it's also because there's an enormous modernization effort that goes into it. So it's a non-trivial activity. It could take multiple years to modernize. People are still going there because the legacy systems require it. However, AI is more readily adopted because as an API callable service from the cloud or even run on-prem, it's easier to integrate into workflows. The harder work with AI is transforming or reimagining a business process and then leveraging AI as a part of that process. That's more software development, data science, process reengineering style work, where cloud modernization is a very heavy lift with a much longer time to ROI. So we like to see AI projects with, being able to prove value within 3 months. And then as you scale them, be able to prove value at scale. Traditional cloud modernization just takes longer, but there's no question the industry continues to move in that direction. It's just a question of pace. And I think the fact that you're not locked into getting to cloud before you can get value to AI is very interesting. You may consume cloud to do it, but you don't have to be entirely on cloud. Because even to Matt's point, some of that data might literally be resting in all kinds of legacy places, including your laptops and other shared drives that may or may not be on the cloud.
Mitra, did you want to add to that?
Well, I completely agree with Bret on the cycle of adoption for AI is very different than the cycle for cloud. But an observation that I've made in the past is that every time a technology is introduced and adopted by the consumers at a very rapid pace, it forces B2B organizations to take a harder look. We saw that, I personally saw that with desktop messengers at the turn of the century, and how, people were bringing that to work, and then we had to implement, desktop messengers behind the firewall. We saw that with social media. We saw that with smartphones from, BlackBerry to the other devices. And we're seeing it with, with GenAI and with the chat features that people are using, that really forced companies to take a look. Now, we have to realize that we've been using AI for a long time. Companies have been using and implementing AI projects, but they have not had an AI strategy per se as a predominant cornerstone of their corporate strategy. When you have projects that are not sanctioned by senior leadership, they kind of die on the vine. They don't get investment. They don't get, and the predictive models don't get updated. So then they stop being useful. Your machine learning models aren't really machine learning because they're not really learning anything. So they get stale, and people toss them as an unsuccessful project. So I want to re-emphasize my point that I made earlier about how important it is to have an AI strategy, and how this your consumers and your employees are now forcing you to take a look at this, this advanced technology and how you can use it for both cost savings and growth opportunities.
Now, we kind of touched on this also, but let's go into more detail. How can telecom companies really prepare their workforces for implementing AI? That seems like quite a challenge. Mitra?
It is a challenge. It's already a challenge. Talent scarcity is a real issue. I started talking about this, I think it was around 2019, where I started addressing this workforce paradox, where you have a lot of roles that are becoming obsolete because of automation and now because of advances in AI. And you have new roles that are being created that you can't fill because you don't have enough skills. So this skills paradox has been accelerated through the pandemic, and then now with the inflection point with the advances in AI and generative AI. Leaders, on one hand, are reducing their workforce but can't fill other roles, and employees are distracted, frankly, by being scared of losing their jobs. Am I going to be relevant? Do I have the skills for this new world? So in my mind, I have three ways that I believe companies can address this. One is upskilling and reskilling your existing workforce. That has multiple benefits. One, you have institutional knowledge that you're keeping in-house, and you're reskilling people with those tacit knowledge that you haven't codified, that you're not going to get when you hire new people. So reskilling and using AI actually to deliver very bespoke, very personalized learning and reskilling at an individual level to your workforce, finding those adjacent skills and training people up. So that's definitely one really good way. Now, it's not going to be the entire solution. So thinking about diversifying your talent pool, sourcing your talent from non-traditional places will help you find the talent that you need. Don't necessarily look at traditional universities. Think about other sources, like a lot of nonprofit career organizations are offering certifications in certain areas around data science or low code or no code. look at those models and look at those organizations. We do a lot of work with those at PwC. We co-create curriculum with them to basically reskill the incoming workforce. And that diversification will do well for you in terms of working with a diverse ecosystem. Having a diverse workforce is also helpful there. And lastly, looking to partnerships as part of your workforce strategy. Telcos coming together to create telco-specific LLMs or multilingual LLMs, or working with, we have an explosion of AI native companies that are, addressing so many issues in our communities, in our society, partnering with them to create new solutions. This is where we think talent can come from, not just from your traditional models. And from my personal point of view is that humans are at the center of any technology being built. And therefore, it's a very essential place for us to start whenever we think about these kinds of transformations.
Great. Matt, did you want to add to that?
Just a perspective that we're seeing, with our clients as they consider that missing middle, I think is what we use the term a little bit with that Mitra references. One is clients are focused on educating their entire workforce on GenAI, right? Because the key is when you redefine processes, it's going to be a joint process between the individual and the tool, right? And really, how do you marry those things together? Our belief is that it's really, the power comes from the combination. It's not just a replacement of AI, right? It's a real combination of the two. I also think that what we've seen with clients is that they're taking an approach where they have to figure out exactly how the business is going to execute the execution of the work with GenAI versus a centralized organization that's going to support them as they're building it out for their workforce to be able to leverage. So there's this fine line between the knowledge that the business functions bring and how they interact with the people that maybe build some leverageable toolkits or efforts on top of the GenAI toolkit, right? So in our view, it's also very clear that there are a series of different LLM models. I think we talk about them later, but organizations are starting to focus on what can they build on top of those models that each organizational team can leverage. And the idea is I don't want that to be built 70 times. I want to build it one time if I can, and leverage it thousands of times throughout the organization. And that way it becomes easier for the workforce to adopt. If the user experience and the way it's designed and structured is simplified, then it's easier to adopt. People understand how to integrate it into their workflow, and it's more leverageable. So, that execution at the ground of how it's used is super critical to getting value out of the entire tool.
Great. Now, we know telecom operators are historically pretty conservative when it comes to making big changes. So what can be done to get telcos to trust AI and maybe embrace responsible use of AI? Mitra?
I think telcos are pretty bought into AI. I mean, when we did a survey, 95% of the decision makers in telcos said that they are adopting AI. And it goes back to what I said earlier. I think it really matters what they mean by adopting AI. Do they have a couple of projects here and there? Are they really implementing it enterprise-wide? Where are they taking advantage of it? But the value proposition is basically twofold. One is survival. If they don't adopt an AI strategy, they're going to be left behind. We already know that. They're not going to manage their costs. They're not going to have customers that are going to be loyal. They're not going to be able to work and collaborate with the ecosystem that's already moving ahead. So survival is the number one, value proposition here. But beyond that, we're at a place in time where growth opportunities are infinite. I can't, you know, on a daily basis, think about multiple ways that companies can recreate themselves in this new chapter of our digital transformation to take advantage of the technologies at hand and the voracious appetite of everyone who now has access to this democratized way of engaging with technology. And we see, as I said before, explosion of companies around using AI and AI tools that can be coupled with, you know, that actually can have the most impact with low latency bandwidth, or, you know, the really the backbone of delivering the outputs. So the growth potential is astronomical, and your cost savings are there, but your survival should be the first motivation to get on board.
Bret, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, so trust is at its heart a very human emotion and feeling and reaction. So whether it's a worker using AI to do their job, or a CEO making a bet on AI to transform their business, establishing that trust starts with a lot of education, getting people to better understand what generative AI does, what it doesn't do, how it behaves, how it performs, what are the known risks, and what are the known mitigations. And as people do understand it, and they also begin to prove it, whether it's someone like us helping to show it, or whether they're proving it through experimentation and learning on their own, it's hard not to see the value once you get into it and get past the fear. The other part is that most of the risks that people encounter have mitigations. There'll be new risks. There's always emerging risks, but there's a lot of mitigations in place. So for whether you're a telco or in any industry, there are solved problems for much of the risks that people read about in the news. The news, it's very easy to click and just see something scary, or I get it that people can see that. However, there's actually really good proven solutions that we do for ourselves and we help others with that help reduce and mitigate those risks so you can get value and balance the outcome and the benefit with managed risk and reward. This is a proven methodology. So once people do understand it, and they also have a governance framework, like we have a responsible AI framework that we use for ourselves and with clients all the time. And it's meant to help us not say no to AI. It's to help us to say how to AI. How do we do this in a way that manages the risk of our business, generates great outcomes, you know, and builds a stakeholder buy-in model and a governance structure so we can make sure that it's always behaving in a way that we want it to.
Right. You know, Sue, I want to just tag along to Bret's comment here. If we look at sort of AI native companies and digital first companies, where you have innovation at the heart of how they operate, you know, they start with understanding the high priority use cases. They experiment, they build prototypes, they test, they, you know, deploy, they manage, they scale. If you have an AI strategy, you have that organization built into all of your departments, every corner of your enterprise, and you have that constant innovation, like Bret said, inside of a governance model where you can manage the risks and create that trust and feel excited and motivated about how this technology can actually extend your human capabilities and creativity and make magical, you know, outcomes that you didn't think you could possibly do. It's a cultural shift in addition to that leadership mindset shift of moving to AI. It's moving your entire organization, like Bret said, and getting them excited about what they can do now in a managed and risk mitigated way.
Right. Now, Matt, I wanted to come back to you because you touched on some use cases of telecom companies and using unstructured data, but how are they actually leveraging AI to enhance their data and draw insights? Can you go into that some more? And how will they manage all the data that is also created by AI?
Yeah, well, there's never a problem with managing data, right? It's easy. Everyone can do it. It's two things about this. One is, based on what we're seeing, I think it's important for everyone to remember we're at the first minute of whatever your sport of choice is. First game, first set, first quarter, first set, first inning. we're early in the game here with this technology, and it's not exactly 100% clear every place it's going to go. It has such broad appeal with GenAI. It touches so many different parts of organizations. But what we're seeing is clear. The ability to interact with the data through natural language, chats and interface to get at analysis and insight is one of the main characteristics and reasons this is going to be probably very successful. We have examples of organizations that are looking at this like a pure play replacement for business intelligence, right? Why do I need to set up dashboards in advance when I can just query with natural language and ask for insights and then dive deeper into the data to get to more activity to understand what's going on without the requirement of someone sitting between me and the data source? This is really at the crux what makes this so powerful. And so I think there is no doubt that the interaction and the business intelligence component of the industry and the way telcos interact with their data is going to be changed forever. The same way, as Bret mentioned earlier, that software development lifecycle and all those activities are likely very much changed and likely will not go back and will be heavily integrated with the tool and the technology. Business intelligence, from our perspective, will be just the same. It's coming. If you look at Code Interpreter or other tools like that we've seen, those are just the beginning of what we believe will come, right? And the integration and the better visualizations that you can get. As far as the data is concerned, I mean, this at the end is always the complexity, which is managing all these sources of data. And this is where data modernization comes in. Most organizations have spent years or thought about or considered for years building cloud data lakes, data lake houses, things like that. The unstructured data is now on tap as well. And we think there's going to be massive efforts to align that and take use of that data that's sitting on people's computers and laptops and things like that as the market just continues to evolve.
Mitra, did you want to add to that?
I think Matt described the state of where we are and the benefits really well. I wanted to touch on an additional topic, and that is data monetization. You can use the data for your cost conservation, you can use the data for your growth, but using the data in a different way where telcos have access to more data than any other industry. People will leave the house without their wallets and their credit cards, but they will not leave the house without their cell phones. So we know there's a lot of data there about people's behaviors, customers' preferences, et cetera. That data can be created into predictive models for better decision making, could be used as machine learning for better performances and more efficiencies, and actually sold to other members of the ecosystem. Now, there's a trust issue there that needs to be managed, and that is the relationship between the provider and the consumer, and the transparency about how an organization is accessing, storing, safeguarding, using data, and monetizing the data. But I do think that this is an incredible space to look for and delve into and think about innovating in. Data monetization at a personal level is going to be one of the next big things.
Now, Bret, I wanted to get, Matt had mentioned modernizing their data. So are telecom companies prepared to modernize their data so that they can take advantage of GenAI without, drowning in irrelevant data?
So they're doing that now. You would look at structured and unstructured data, structured being the tabular numeric data that makes up finance and every other part of traditional business. That has been modernized heavily on cloud through enterprise data warehouses for the last several years across telco. And that's really good for the structured data. That unlocks a whole set of analytics and reporting that previously was hard to do because data was spread everywhere. With generative AI, you can now unlock the unstructured data. And it's estimated that about 80% of the data of your enterprise is unstructured. It's in documents, it's in images, it's in social feedback about your products and services. All of this is written words. It's even the policies and procedures you use to train people as you onboard them. It's the scripts you give to your customer service agents. It's everything, product catalogs, everything. And so all of that now can be unlocked. And the big effort, and this is early days still, is to really figure out which of that data is most relevant to the use cases that matter. How do you make sure that data is accurate, well-governed, because unstructured data historically was not well-governed, and then prepare that data and pipeline it into generative AI so it can provide unique insights and support specific to your business. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that people just use generative AI sort of off the shelf, and then everyone would have the same AI answers. But when you apply your enterprise data, your policies, your procedures, your contracts, whatever data you've been collecting about customers and your business, when you apply that, you get specific answers to your business, making all of your employees as smart as your smartest employee, really unlocking a huge amount of unstructured text, documents, and images and everything else. That's really new. And so companies are preparing that. And I think they're focusing, instead of just massive modernization of all unstructured data, more of a use case outcome driven approach where you identify things that are high value, like customer service, and then focus on the documentation that's essential to customer service and preparing that. We're doing that with a lot of clients. It's focusing on the data that matters to the use case that matters, and then building up the generative AI capabilities to leverage that data. And then that scales out over time. And you'll find there's lots of unstructured data you never have to deal with because it maybe was only useful in the moment, or it wasn't really a source of truth. It was just something that was an artifact of work. You have to find those sources of truth and value through the use cases and then bring them to life through generative AI.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Brett's got it. It's very iterative, right? I think everyone's going to learn this iteratively. The value, there's no mechanism to score the value of data throughout an organization consistently. So the way we're going to figure it out is through trial and error. We're going to figure it out through augmenting the models, as Brett's alluding to, and ensuring that the data that the model uses is targeted on the data sets or the information about your business that are critical. And through interaction and feedback from humans, determining the quality and value of that data, and organizations will figure out how to manage that. I think all the data that's sitting on SharePoints, all the data that's sitting in Google Drives or whatever it may be, whatever virtual storage devices folks are using, or cloud-based storage that folks are using, is really going to be eventually the key to how we get to it, and setting that up and feeling that you can not only embed it in a way that really makes that data available to you in the model, but also making sure that you're getting the answers you expect based on the type of data that you're importing, right? I mean, that in the end is really how organizations are going to figure it out.
Right. Mitra, how do you think Gen AI will transform transformation?
Yes, that existential prediction that we published. So I think there are different ways of looking at it. Traditionally, when we think about transformation, we think about humans implementing technology to create efficiencies, to change, to transform some business processes, and to help an organization become more effective, or sometimes do a completely strategic pivot. With Gen AI, we're seeing that the equation is a little bit different. The equation is what we call human-led and tech-powered. Basically, the technology is extending the human capability, and the technology itself is continuously improving and updating, and vice versa with the people involved. So the level of innovation and creativity becomes a cyclical, sort of continuous model, whereas before we saw transformation as a project that you did and you had an outcome and you went on to another project. I think with Gen AI and with the tools that are coming out, you will see self-improving code, self-improving models. You're going to see models talking to each other. You're going to see workflow managing other workflow. You're going to see a lot of transformation happening within the technology, guided by the humans, guided by the people who are trying to achieve the outcome. This is how I see the transformation of transformation. And it's really important to know, and I say this every time I get a chance to do it, that we are at a moment of the human machine renaissance. This is something that, I've been in digital, I was at the forefront of digital transformation since I was an undergrad in computer science. So I've been through this journey, and this is definitely an inflection point where we are going to fundamentally change the way we work and live and interact with each other, consume. Everything is going to be very different. And it's very important to know that AI is not here to replace us. It's here to augment our capability. It is here to enhance the human experience and the way we live and work. And that's what I get out of transforming transformation. It's a completely different way of evolving.
Bret, do you want to give your take on that?
Yeah, so transformation has always relied on really smart people with strategic thinking and transformational knowledge that can be applied to help business leaders decide what to do. And all of a sudden now you can literally ask a chatbot, what should I do? Just give it a bunch of conditions. What to do is not the hard part. It's the how you do it that's so difficult. So this is probably the largest change management exercise in the history of our careers, because you never had something so wide-reaching that touched so many roles from top to bottom of the organization. So transformation here is really about helping understand, one, the human side of it. How do we get people to understand, be comfortable, to envision their work being done with AI, and to envision their business being run in a way that leverages AI for competitive advantage. So it's more about the how, which is very much around the people change, but also the methodologies. This is not something you can just buy. You can't just buy a product and become an AI-driven business. You have to transform your work, which means understanding your work, understanding how AI can participate in that work, and then reimagining these processes and workflows with people at the center, enabled and enhanced by AI to do work faster. So what I think I've seen the most in the last year was business leaders focusing so much more on the how. What are the best practices? Who else is doing it? What steps are they taking? How are they implementing it with repeatability, with scale, with the design for production? Whereas AI in the past years was a tech that was done for experimentation, it's now a piece of a transformation being done for production and outcomes. And the people who can speak about how to do it are obviously very, very busy. And I think business leaders are so much more focused on the value of the how than the what.
And the why. I think the why is going to help that discerning perspective that we need to not get inundated with everything that we could do and the prioritization.
And that's an interesting point, because the premise that you can just decide why to do this, you have to have clear purpose and clear vision for how generative AI is going to transform a business. So the business leaders who do understand and have that vision, I can see them emerging already within our clients. They are transformation agents looking for help to also bring their workforce towards this, to envision how work could be done. And it's a very different discussion than just deploy a tool or build a thing. It's very much around helping people imagine why this is going to be good for them and their business and their customers, and how they're going to do it.
So I want to ask each of you, what surprised you the most about the telecom industry's use of AI in 2023? Bret, do you want to start?
I spent the last year and a half just heavily engaged with customers in every sector. And in telco in particular, I was surprised at the pace that the questions improved. The maturity and the thinking from just how do I deploy a thing, or what does this really do, from education to adoption, getting it in people's hands, and then really the focus on the transformation. And all of these discussions now are very advanced discussions. C-suite, CEOs asking questions around, how do I transform customer service? How do I bring new products to market, leveraging AI to differentiate my business? How do I improve access to my services? These are really fundamental and hard questions. And I see it in telco, a few other industries. much faster than everywhere else. And I think we would have expected, like most new innovations, that it takes much longer to get to that point. But it shifted very quickly from educational to really transformative projects, which we're seeing outcomes from already in a very short period of time. So I'm just happy with the pace. Those of us who see it, because we live and work on this all the time, aren't surprised by the pace of AI. But the fact that our clients, especially within telco, are adopting and asking much harder questions every day, really, I think is a great sign for the industry.
That's great. Matt?
I think my surprise is always how organizations figure out how to tie different parts of their teams together with the technology. I think that we've seen organizations look for, take the technology and leverage it for, hey, I identified an exception or a problem in our operations. A piece of equipment broke down. There's the quality of the service isn't as good. And immediately using it and thinking about how does that tie to the solutioning and how can I use the AI to help me get to the answer quicker, right? That just efficiency or process is so powerful. And most of our clients, like one of the first things they thought about, especially in telecom space, is how to put those two pieces together, right? And make a wholesome solution rather than just like small little use cases.
Mitra?
Well, what surprised me the most also delighted me the most, and that was the partnerships that I saw being forged very quickly with between telcos and hospitals, telcos and education, telcos and crisis management, and how companies came together unexpectedly to leverage technology in a way to serve people, prevent disasters from having the disastrous impact that they could have had, and to bring human necessities like healthcare and education to people in a meaningful way.
Great. And we are just about out of time. So let's just leave the audience with one final thing. What is one piece of advice you want to leave the audience with? Matt, do you want to start?
I'll speak up because I have a team of data scientists with me, right? That we run for the firm, and the model is really changing the way I think we interact with our data scientists in the organization, because you can interact with the data and information just through normal, natural language. We forget how important it is to get the model right. We forget the importance of getting the data properly into the model and thinking through the implications of the processes. So my feeling is it shifts the responsibility, shifts the way we're going to use data scientists. Maybe we focus them more when it's a combination of these AIs put together to get the most value out of it, and making sure that they understand how they contribute back to the organization.
Great. Bret?
There's a lot of things that people should focus on, but I think most importantly, getting started and listening to the business. The people who do the work today are the ones who will transform the work. And this is not something you can just give to an IT team and let them build and hopefully get value from it. It has to be done in partnership with the business. And so listening to the business, enabling them, educating them on how GenAI works, and then listening to them for ideas that are impactful, that can drive real change, is what's working in most companies. So those companies that are embracing the business will find great value. And also, if you don't, they will probably do something on their own in a way that doesn't enforce the trust and governance you're trying to build within your business. So by embracing the business, you're also reducing risk, increasing the kind of closeness to where work is being transformed, and helping enable a new workforce. The other part is listen to the newest people in your business. Everyone you hired in June last year graduated with help from ChatGPT. They wrote their resume with it. They prepared for their interview with it. They're coming in AI native. So you're building an AI native workforce by hiring people. And as you're doing that, listen to them, because they have ideas as well, especially if they're deployed within your business. And you'll see really, really great ideas from them.
Mitra?
Trust, transparency, and trust. We've seen a confluence of factors contributing to erosion of trust. And we hear doomsday discussions about AI. We hear cyber attacks. We hear about fraud. We hear about misinformation and disinformation. We touched on this earlier. There are mitigation factors for everything. Don't get scared, and don't blindly trust. Be literate, be AI literate, be media literate, and don't be afraid. This is a new technology that is not going away, And what we have to do is harness its benefits and mitigate its risks. And we can only do that together if everybody participates.
Great. Thank you. We were not able to get to questions today, but your questions will be forwarded to the panelists, and they will respond individually. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to PwC for hosting this webinar. This webinar will be available on demand within 24 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you.